Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal-mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah. With the grace of Allah, we'll continue our discussion on Maqasid Shariah, how we are going to develop a vibrant, strong ummah in the 21st century, how we contribute towards the civilizational development of this 21st century, in which we can have a just, peaceful, happy society in the whole world. So we have been discussing on the various aspects of Al-Maqasid Al-Shariah, and we have discussed about the aspect of respect for divine revelation, Haqqul ad-Din, respect for human person, Haqqul an-Nafs, respect for family, Haqqul an-Nasl, respect for environment, Haqqul al-Mahid, and now we are just going to discuss about the respect for economic justice, Haqqul al-Mal. This is very important, especially in the 21st century where we face a lot of challenges. So within Maqasid Shariah, the purpose of Maqasid for this economic Shariah, where we can see this, is first, respect for economic justice is the principle where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed upon us that we are to be an ummah of al-adil. So Allah tells us that we must be bringing up within this community of existence, the human existence, the ecological balance, the whole world, it must be based on a just balance, and it must be based on al-adil. This is repeated many times. That's why most of our scholars have already explained within the framework of Islam itself. That means the framework of Islam is, apart from Islam, Iman, and Ihsan, we have al-adil. Just after Tawheed, that means we must have our capacity to generate a just society, an equal society, a giving society as best as we can, in a framework that is just, fair, and not non-violent. So how are we going to go about with it? So the primary maqasid of economic justice is respect for economic justice. This is where we are talking about. And the secondary, the hijriyat goals, is we have personal responsibilities, and we have societal responsibilities. We also have corporate responsibilities, especially when you're talking about the world now being controlled by multinationals. These are, their shareholders are so-called the kingmakers in how we are actually going to move into the societal development in the 21st century. Now, I'll give you some idea of what is happening now, where it is very, very unjust and unequal. And this cannot go on, because then, as a civilization, as a world, we would then head towards a society of hatred, a society of self-destruction. So the tertiary tasniyat objectives is, we have a few areas in which we're going to talk about. All right. For example, economic justice entails first our personal ethics. Our personal ethics in terms of the amaliyat. What do? We must avoid immoral economic activities. So in these immoral economic activities encompasses, for example, bribery, corruption in certain countries, especially in Africa, in the Sub-Sahara, and in many parts of the world, including Asia. Bribery takes up to 50% of the GDP of the country. That means 50% of the GDP of the country is being paid through corruption to officials, to people, and so on. So it is self-destructive. That's why we have a huge problem, and that is haram. And we Muslims must say that bribery in whatever form is not acceptable in Islam. And the worst culprit are basically countries with the so-called Islamic tag. They have this Islamic tag within the framework of the country. They have this idea of compliance to Sharia, but corruption is at the highest level. So we must be able to then redefine within the Muslim countries, and redefine even within the global society. Okay, activities such as bribery, unfair trade practices, which is going to become even worse. Now we have certain economic blocs leaving out the third world countries to defend for themselves, and this can cause massive disruption, massive hunger, and massive unequalness in the world, in the global world. All right. And then we have other things like gambling, alcohol, and so on. So that is the first aspect in terms of our personal ethics, to develop the justice for economic justice. Second aspect of the amaliyat and the tasniyat is concern for the poor. In a just world, we must make sure that everybody has at least a basic requirement to live a good life. That means they must have good food, a decent amount of food, good shelter, good health care, good education. These are the very basic things which is within the framework of Islam, that every human being on this earth will have their rights. So we have to have within the framework of Islam to enhance, because within the framework of Islam we have zakah and sadaqah. We have this waqaf. So we have all the infrastructure that is existent. For example, the waqaf from the Ottoman Empire is still alive today, and they have billions and billions of USD in terms of asset. We have even the waqaf, for example, of our university Al-Azhar is still ineffective today, even though it was done 800, 900 years ago. So you can see the effectiveness of this whole idea of waqaf. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells in the Quran, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu anfiqu mimma razaqnakum min qabli an ya'ti yawmun la bay'un fihi wa la khullatun wa la shaf'ah wal kafiruna humuz zalimun. All those who believe, spend, anfiqu, whatever the gift that Allah has given you, the risk, that in tremendous amount that Allah has given you, and spend it in terms of your zakah, in terms of your sadaqah, in terms of your waqf, so that we can then distribute this wealth that Allah has given us. So it is very important for us to do that in our lifetime, before the day when you return to God. Then at that time you cannot say, God, send me back, I want to spend my money. It is gone. So you got to spend it the day before. There will be no bargaining, no intersection, and no help. That will be the day when you die, you leave this earth. So before we die, we have to have some sort of asset planning for us to give away as much as we can, so that we take care of our life, we take care of our children or even our grandchildren, and then put aside a huge amount towards the development of the ummah, towards the development of this civilization, so that we Muslims will be the leading light towards a just and giving society. Then we have to have, in terms of this economic justice, we have to have respect and the sacred nature of private ownership and means of production. In Islam, we are not a communist society. We are not a dictatorial society. All those experiments in terms of communism, socialism has failed. And now we have gone into gross or crude capitalism, where the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. That also is a very evil model. It is unsustainable. Even though in Islam we respect private enterprise, we encourage private enterprise, we encourage building of businesses, because by having businesses then you can pay zakat, and then you can give sadaqah, and then you can do your waqaf for all the assets that you have built up, and then you give back to society. That is a wonderful circle of development which Islam encourages. So we Muslims have all the beautiful mechanism. It is now for us to actualize those beautiful mechanism to show to the world, yes, we Muslims are a giving society, a living society, a society that is developing towards a just world in the 21st century. And then we have to develop our capital base in terms of cooperative movement, in terms of giving shares to the employees and so on. All right? And we also have to write a safety net for all those displaced people. All right? There are many people in the world today that has a lot of needs. So for example, there are refugees. How are we going to help them? For example, now there are more than 1 million Rohingya refugees that is being thrown out of their country in the Arakan state in Myanmar. That is gross injustice, gross evil, genocide, and ethnic cleansing. So the world must rise to it to protect these people and help to send peacekeeping forces in the state of Rakhine and bring them back and allow them to grow, to have a just economic activity. They are poor farmers, all right? So what we need to do is to encourage that kind of peacekeeping, encourage a peaceful solution to a very evil problem, and in a way, we Muslims must get together to provide safety nets for these people. And also, we also have to have universal, for example, healthcare, universal education, and so on. But I also want to touch on what is going to happen in the 21st century. All right, this is very important for us as Muslims to reframe our idea of what is work and what is actually the role of multinational cooperation and the role of society, and how we're going to have a just world in the 21st century. Because as we know, we are heading towards a world in which more and more of the things that we see around will be driven by artificial intelligence, robotics, And with artificial intelligence and robotics, there will be a lot of jobs that will be lost. For example, within 5 years, you will have self-driving cars, self-driving trucks. So what happened to the millions and millions of truck drivers, taxi drivers? They will have to find a new vocation. So what is a safety net for them? And then we have now, for example, farming. Large-scale farming now are using robotics, so that the whole farm machinery is driverless. They're using satellite technology, they're using wireless technology. Everything is taken off from planting to harvest, all without human hands. So what are we going to do with the millions and millions of people who are farming? Where are we going to put them on? And we have, for example, like in mining today, they have these huge trucks that is 30-tonner, 50-tonner trucks, huge trucks, which is driverless. They used to have many drivers. Now, these mining machines are just working on the basis of robotics and artificial intelligences, and it will displace billions of people in this 21st century. And this is coming within the next 10 to 20 years. So we have to be prepared. There will be billions of people displaced by this new technology of artificial intelligence and robotics technology. And with this, there will be a lot of people, especially the older generation, who cannot adapt to this new technology. We must have safety net for them. So we Muslims must think ahead. How are we going to live in a society that is geared that way? And one of the solutions is for us to go back to nature, to live in a society where we can use all the technology, from solar energy to wind energy to hydro energy, to go back to basic life, which is very comfortable. Off-grid, all right, doing permaculture, living with nature, having growing food very productively, using polyculture instead of monoculture, and using our hands and using our energy and using our technology to bring a wonderful life. And that is possible. That's why, as part of this positive Islamic psychology, I have chapter 10 on how to develop a society based on permaculture, because a society based on permaculture is where we have polyculture. We produce more than enough food for those in this area to eat, and we can share and trade. And we also can have wonderful zones for wild animals, for birds, for bees, and everybody in the world can strive to create a new utopia. This is not a dream. This is a reality that we Muslims can initiate, and we can live in a just world where everybody's need is taken care of, and it is a fair and just and beautiful world based on the Maqasid of Shariah. This is a beautiful thing in Islam, and I encourage you to do how this integration of we Muslims facing these challenges of the 21st century, which the West now is already now muddling through. They have no idea how when all their workers are being displaced in the factories, in the truck drivers, even in the front end, where everything is being done by robotics and artificial intelligence. How are we going to create a society? We can have either two choices: a society based on gross hedonistic life, or a society based on contemplation, remembrance of God, beautiful family, beautiful life, beautiful environment with the birds singing. And that is the life that Allah ordained upon us to strive in this da'wah, in this jihad, to build a wonderful society based on a Maqasid al-Shariah, which I encourage you to do more studies, more research, and inshallah, using this background of positive Islamic psychology, we will then be able to help the Ummah first and help humanity to achieve a just, a giving society based on love, mercy, compassion, inshallah.